All right, I'll call the meeting to order. And our first order of business is to acknowledge that we're on the homeland of the many diverse First Nations and Métis people whose ancestors have walked this land since time immemorial. We are grateful to work, live, and learn on the traditional territory of Treaty 8. And with that, we'll move to our agenda. We do have the one addition, the letter from Lesser Slave River regarding the Summer Games in 2028. And that'll be under correspondence. Number 14 at the end. Anything else? All right, seeing none. We'll get a motion with the one addition. All right, all in favor? Opposed?
Only because it didn't come out in time and we have a bylaw that says 3 business days prior to, and I know errors happen, but that's the reason. Not content.
Okay. All right, yeah, well, again, this was time sensitive just because they needed an answer for their application in. That's why we're adding it. We get added in, but they needed.
No, the entire agenda package, not the.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right, and we'll move on to our scheduled delegation, and we'll start with our auditor. And I'll turn it over to Edward.
Sounds good. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm sorry, I'm just in the hotel right now. So hopefully you. Okay. Oh, that's too bad. I put my best suit on today. But no, for sure. So I can just get right to it if you guys have I think you guys might have the financial statements in front of you, the package. Maybe?
No, we don't. You don't.
Okay, well, I can go through it anyways. I sent that over. So I'll kind of get started on this. So, we're a lot earlier than we were last year, right? So we were actually done before May 1st. I wanted to put that out there because I know that was something we were aiming towards. Shanda and David did a really good job trying to put everything together. Just unfortunately, I've been on the road a lot for audits, and this was the only time that we got to sit down together to go through this and get it signed off and submitted. So we are a lot earlier, like I said, than last year. Everything is good. We're going to be issuing a clean, unqualified audit opinion for the year. So one of the things that I always talk about when I do this presentation, and for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Edward. I'm a partner at Doyle and Company. We're external auditors to the town of High Prairie. So sort of the things that I usually talk about when I give these presentations is because usually, once I talk about the audit opinion, everybody kind of just, it becomes kind of, everything becomes secondary after that, right? So I try to give the importance of what we do here, right? So the most important piece that me and our team that come up to High Prairie, we always look for is independence. So we're independent of the town council, of your finance and administration staff, and we always look at this in 3 stages, right? So before we accept the engagement, we go through that. During the audit, we go through it, and then before we form our opinion, we go through that. So what that's the 3 phases I like to say. So, before you can issue a clean and qualified audit opinion or an audit opinion in general, it's important to kind of go through the independent step. And we do that, like I said, before we take the engagement, at the middle when we do our field work. And if anything changes at any point in time, I always tell people if any one of our team members becomes not independent of the town, we pull that individual and someone else is put in place. Okay. So that's important. The audit report is going to be dated for today's date. That's when we have the meeting. That's when, council is going to be looking at this. like I said, we're gonna go forward with a clean and qualified audit opinion for March or for December 31st, 2024. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself right now. So, generally in the audit report, it's 2 pages long. It talks about our responsibilities or responsibilities. We come out here, I want to say we come out twice a year for a few days each trip. We do an interim audit and then we do a year-end audit where we do all your balance sheet and income statement items. We generally wait for the Waste Management Authority and we can consolidate that into the financial statements as well. So everything went well this year. We had the financial statements, I think, well before May 1st, and we were able to consolidate that in. Okay, so good job. Some of the items on the statement of financial position, often referred to as the balance sheet. We have cash. Cash at the end of December 31st, 2024 is $14,211,754. Your accounts receivable. So accounts receivable, one of the things that's important to note for everybody is these financial statements are done in they're historical documents, right? So all the dates that I'm talking about are as at December 31st. So the numbers now could be a lot different than what they were almost 6 months ago, right? So we got 14,200,000 cash and temporary investments. Your accounts receivable, it's important to know the date because accounts receivables are items that at that point in time, December 31st, the town hasn't received yet. Okay, it's similar to an accounts payable where that's money that's owed at the end of December 31st. It's not to say that money isn't going to be received. All it means at that point in time is when you have a receivable. Okay, so receivables are your taxes receivable at the end of December 31st is 225,000. Receivables from other government is 2 million. Trade and other receivables is $1,456,849. You have your payables, which was what I talked about. It's $2 million at the end of December 31st. That $2 million, if you were to even look at January 10th, January 11th, those amounts would be significantly reduced just because that's, like I said, everything that's owed at the end of December have to be reported here. We just have to pick up cutoff time, and December 31st is when municipalities are. Okay. Your deferred revenue for the year is $3,274,432. And what ends up happening with this is deferred revenue is money that you guys have received for projects that haven't yet been done. Okay. So one of the things to look for here is, do you have the cash to cover off the deferred revenue? You have 14 million in the bank. Your deferred revenue is at $3.2 million. Okay. So, once this gets uploaded to the website, the municipal affairs website, there's going to be notes to the financial statement that has all these supports to all the numbers on there. There's also going to be information as to what the deferreds breakdown, what your receivables are, all that sort of stuff. Long-term debt is $905,000. And then your tangible capital asset ends the year at $44,756,850. Inventory for consumption, $262,000. Prepaid expense is $6,357. So your net financial assets ending the year, we see an increase there from $9.9 million to $12.6 million. And then, so that's your net financial assets. Your non-financial assets total is $45,026,165. Some of the tangible asset additions include West Prairie River crossing, a few pieces of machinery, some trucks, 52nd Avenue, and some fire and network upgrades. Okay, your accumulated surplus for the end of December 31st, 2024 is $57,692,789. And then for your statement of operations, I have your revenues total at $12,358,984. Pretty consistent with last year. Your expenditures total are $11,429,435 for an excess of revenue over expenditures at 1.8 million. I wish you can see the schedule in here. There's a schedule that I usually like to talk about. It's the consolidated schedule of changes in accumulated operating surplus, Schedule 1 in the financial statements. For that, there's this, there's this sideways schedule that I usually talk about. I usually focus a lot of my time on that schedule because it pretty much encompasses everything for the year into this one page. And has a lot of really good information. It tells you what your unrestricted surplus at the beginning of the year was, what the ending is. It tells you what your internally restricted surplus is, which is your reserves, what it started the year off with, and what it ended the year off with, your equity and tangible capital assets. And in total, it breaks down your accumulated surplus for you, right? So I'll go through some of the numbers here. But generally for 2024, it looks good. You guys are adding to your surplus, both for unrestricted and both for internally restricted, which is your reserves. So you started the year off with your unrestricted at $4.5 million. You added $888,000 to that. So you're ending the year off with 5.4 million unrestricted surplus. From that original amount, we also transferred over $1,482,503 of unrestricted funds designated for future use. So that's going to go towards your internally restricted surplus. Okay, so that started the year off at 6.9 million, increased with that 1.4 million I just mentioned. Your internally restricted surplus ends the year off at $8,425,255. Okay. Your total change in accumulated surplus is 1.8 million. You started the year off at 55.8 million. You end the year at $57,692,789. Okay. And then the rest of the financial statements I have here, there's going to be schedules for tangible capital assets. Total additions for the year is $1,273,951. Your total net book value of all your assets is $44,756,850 for the year. And then there's a lot of schedules in here that talk about property taxes, government transfers, expenditures by objects. And then there's a wide range. I think there's about 10 or 12 pages of notes that, like I said, they usually support all the numbers on the financial statements. It helps the users, the readers, just understand what's going on with the town. Okay. And on page 23 of the financial statements that gets uploaded, there's also the salaries and benefits of the mayor and councillor and the CAO. Okay. Any questions?
Okay, thank you for that. And I'll open the floor for any questions.
Yep.
Just so you know, so what's going to happen, my manager of finance, she's on her way to Arizona right now. So I held back the financial statements until the next meeting. I've got a full financial analysis and showing 5-year trends against the current financial statements. So that'll be out on June 10th. But I'm pleased to hear, this is David Joy, the CAO. I am pleased to hear that it went smoother, the audit went smoother and it got done sooner. So I appreciate that. I did ask Edward to provide us with a non-consolidated financial statement. So I think, Edward, you had mentioned you've completed those. I still have to receive them. And that will be presented to council on June 10th.
Perfect. Yep. That's like I said, I have them all done up and ready to send you. I just want to make sure that when we back out some of the equity items for the Waste Management Authority and I think the library, we just make sure the numbers are good before I send those over to you. But
Right.
you know, that's usually where we start anyways. And nice to see you, David. I can see
Yeah.
you, but I don't think you can see me. So
No, so, but you did Slave Lake, I think, did you?
Yep.
Many years ago, yeah, so.
many moons
I think,
ago.
yeah, we have met, I think. One other thing for council benefit, and there is a report to council in this agenda. I took those financial statements of the viewers, Edward, the towns, and did a financial health ratio. So we see how healthy we are, because it's always easy. All municipalities seem to show a surplus, but are we healthy in all aspects of the financial part of the town? So I think that's an important part to provide council with perspective.
Perfect. No, that's awesome, right? It's good to have that information presented to everybody. You know, like I said, generally I just come here to make sure your financials are good, numbers in the right spots.
And you know, Shanda did a lot of work, a lot of overtime, and I think she did really in preparing all the continuity schedules for the external auditors ahead of time. Yeah, she did a great job.
Yeah, hats off to the both of you. You guys did an awesome job helping with all the ladies in finance and yourself. You know, have given us everything we've asked for. They made the audit kind of a breeze when we're there.
Well, that's really good to hear. And just so I'm clear, have we got the audits for the library and the waste authority yet? No, we're still waiting on. Okay, I just wasn't sure. So we're at the unconsolidated stage right now.
No, we have those. We have. I don't know if we have the finals, but this year the ones that I just presented and talked about are the consolidated ones. I am going to give a unconsolidated one as well, because typically in years past we've been waiting for the Waste Management Authority. I think we got a really early draft this year that when I was talking to the individual there, they said that these are probably not going to change. So, you know, if they do change, then we'll have to adjust some things. But so far, I think it's been a month since I've had them, and I haven't seen any changes or they've communicated any changes to me.
All right, well, thanks for that. I know council didn't have any questions yet, but once we get the documents in front of us and can look them over for a bit, we may have some questions. So would we be available to, I guess, either work through you, David, or we could contact you directly? How would you like to do that?
Yeah, you bet. David knows where to get me. He knows where to find me.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we have questions through David, we can get some answers from you and go from there.
100%.
Ask again if there's anything from council, any questions on the audit at this point? I don't see anything, so thank you very much. And I'm really glad to hear that the audit, well, I'm happy to see that it's done early and that there was no issues. So that's great,
Yeah.
great news. So
Yeah, we're gonna push it. We're gonna push you guys to before May 1st next year. So look out for that.
One thing I have to ask, Edward, were there any recommendations? Do you have any letter of recommendations what we can do better?
Generally nothing major. You know, we just generally when we come out here, you're always gonna find some stuff, right? So, you know, this year, I think the last year's recommendations we had were to get the report. So the system you guys have, you generate a report out, and if you don't do it by December 31st, you can never get it back. It's weird, but you know, Ashanda and the team this year, you know, we got the reports for December 31st. So, you know, that's awesome, right? That's something that we really needed. The filing has always been really good for you guys. Anything we're looking for, anybody can really pull out from the cabinets and provide us documentation for it. And we do a sample, and when we look through it, and we found everything when we came out there. So nothing necessarily to recommend. We just want to make sure we push this thing forward so that, the only thing is, if we can get this done before May 1st, you guys are golden.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you very much for giving us your presentation, Henry.
Yeah, you bet. You guys take care. Thanks for having me, and I'm sure we'll be chatting again soon.
You betcha. Go enjoy your evening and go Oilers go.
Yeah, you bet. Okay. See you guys.
All right, so we can move to our next scheduled delegation, which is commenting from Lindsay Municipal Services. Well, you've got three things to talk to us about.
Yeah, for us, yeah.
So when you're up there, we'll, because we do record these, we'll get you guys to introduce yourselves.
Okay.
And then I'll turn the floor over to you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. My name is Komiete Tete, Manager of Planning with Mackenzie Municipal Services Agency. And we are here to talk about planning matters. So I will have Karen introduce herself to you.
I'm Karim Bayer, I'm a municipal planner at East.
Yes, so Karen is one of our new planning staff, and she's working with me for the town. So, so we have received a couple of inquiries from the town, and upon the invitation of administration, we are here to speak to those items to council and get some direction from council on those things. So maybe I will start off with the site remediation for the SO lot that's just across from the town office. The consultant for the landowner contacted town to ask if they could be allowed to do a different type of remediation. So not like a full scale or full scope remediation. There's a category that the province allows remediation to be met if it meets specific criteria. And there are 8 of those criteria. One of them being that the property has to be a certain distance from the municipal boundary. There should not be any wells used for domestic or municipal water supply within 300 meters from the property's boundary. There has to be a municipal bylaw that prohibits use or installation of domestic groundwater supply, and then also a bylaw that mandates all ratepayers to use town services. There are other technical requirements as well. So we did an initial evaluation and determined that some of the criteria met, others are not. The important ones are the bylaws. So the town's public utility bylaw or utility bylaw does make the town the sole supplier of water. However, it also has allowance for individuals to use other sources of water besides the town, subject to town approval. So there is some allowed for other alternative sources of water for ratepayers to utilize if the town feels or determines them to be appropriate. The second is that the bylaw does not exclusively prohibit the use of groundwater. So on the basis of just those 2 criteria, we deem that those criteria have not been met. And the town's bylaw are not in support of that pathway. And so if council deems it appropriate to support that, then an amendment is necessary to the utilities bylaw. What, in our professional opinion, is to be able to make that determination, we think that it's important for council to fully understand the risk opting for this pathway or this exclusion pathway to fully understand what the risks are, or have full information to be able to make that determination. And then, because among other things, previously there was some conversation about using those lots for a municipal park, and MMSA was involved with that discussion as well. So we would like to know, for example, what uses can be supported by this exemption pathway versus full scope remediation. The exemption pathway reduces the cost of remediation, so the consultant would of course pursue that option if the municipality supports that. What we are suggesting is that council should ask for some risk assessment information to know, other full information to make that determination in terms of what the risk are and what liabilities are associated with that as well. And then, as I mentioned earlier, also, it's currently zoned highway commercial, and there are a range of uses under the land use bylaw that are allowed within that zone. So, if subsequent to the remediation, there are restrictions in terms of what the lands could be used for, then that information would also be helpful so that if there is need to amend the land use bylaw to restrict the type of uses that could be allowed on that lands, then we also have that information to be able to make that decision. It is a private property, so the risk remain private for now, but if and when they are donated, for example, to the town, then those liabilities transfer over to the town. If not, mostly they remain private. The town still have an obligation to ensure that development is done appropriately. So basically, this is the information that we have so far, which is that in a summary, the current bylaws do not support this carve-out. If council wants to support that, an amendment is necessary. Before council makes any such decision, we recommend that council has all the information that it needs to be able to make an informed decision, including in this case, a risk assessment. If that's the direction that council chooses to proceed, then administration will communicate that to the inquiry or the consultant. And I think if they want to look at that option, then it's reasonable that perhaps they should absorb the cost of doing that assessment and to see whether if that's the option that council would want to consider. So I'll pause here for any questions.
All right, any questions on this? Councillor Wakel?
Okay. There's no way that I want the town to assume any responsibility for the contamination on this site. It's heavily contaminated. We know this. We know that it's bleeding off the site. Groundwater? Well, it used to be called Ravine SO back in the 50s and 60s, I believe it was. There used to be a bridge on Highway 749 right there. And it did that little ditch. That's where the Boston used to be. That's where this goes. We need to be really, really careful with this. Vesso's going to give this to us. They can give it to us along with like $3 million to clean it up, because that's probably what it'll take. It might even be more. This is a huge undertaking, and I am very worried about assuming. I don't want to assume any liability for this at all, ever.
Okay, anyone else?
I guess that was my question. So did I hear you correctly when you said, were you suggesting that we approach ESO to get them to pay for a risk assessment? Or are you asking us to take that on?
So yes, if council is inclined towards considering that, then the recommendation is that, yes, we do approach ESO and ask for a risk assessment. That will be done by an independent consultant. But if council is not in a position to consider that, then the simple answer is that the bylaws don't support that. So that's it. Then they will be required to do full scale remediation instead of So I think this is like a limited scope remediation subject to all of those other precautions that nobody will use groundwater and all of that. The province has already made that possibility possible, but we need a buy-in from the municipality. So as is now, the bylaws do not support that. So if council don't want to even consider that option at all, then the answer is that the bylaws don't support that. And so the town does not support that option. Then they will be required to do full-scale remediation.
So I have a question
Yes.
for Russ and then maybe Matt. Would it be reasonable to make that request, or have we in the past and have they denied it? For them to pay for a risk assessment?
Sorry, I'm waiting for a response from their consulting firm, or their consulting firm is going to ESSO or to get answers based on the information that's here. And so I'm waiting for that, and I'll follow up this week with that consulting firm.
So just so I can clarify this and maybe summarize it if I'm not mistaken, that ESSO is looking to incorporate this domestic use aquifer exclusion option.
Correct, from their consultant. Well, I don't know whether they categorically ask the consultant to look at that option, or is the consultant looking at different ways of approaching the remediation and then contacting the town to see whether that might be a pathway. So I don't know whether they are acting on the instructions of ESSO or it's them just, looking at different options for approaching the issue.
So I heard you say that the province has, quote, opened the door for this exclusion of domestic use. And if, as long as there's nobody using that aquifer for domestic use. Is
That's
that
correct.
the bottom line? And do we know from a town's perspective, do we have anybody using that for domestic use?
Yeah, we didn't have that information, so we didn't speak to that.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the information to make that determination. Yeah, that's it. But the bylaws, they are so that's one of several criteria that have to be met. And there have to be bylaws that prohibit groundwater usage and also exclusively makes the town the sole supplier of water. Your bylaw, even though it does make the town the sole supplier, also has a carve out somewhat for people or alternative water supply sources subject to town approval. And has nothing saying about or prohibiting people from having or using underground water at all as is. So if, like I said, if there is a tendency for council to support that, then that bylaw has to be amended.
And just so I clarify, for domestic use, that would mean going into the house for drinking water, showering, that's what you're calling
Yes.
domestic use. Not, I know people will use the water out of that creek further down and stuff for washing vehicles or watering lawns, that kind of thing, right? That still would be permitted.
I'll have to look into that, but I will assume so, yes.
Yeah, okay. So if they are given this exemption, it costs them less to remediate the land. And is that land then saleable?
I think
Because-
so. It may be, but I think there will still be some liabilities associated with that. And because it's private land, I assume they are required to disclose the liabilities as part of the sale. I don't know what the rules are, but that's my assumption. But I think part of the information I will need is if it is remediated through this pathway, what type of uses can they support? And then whether there are any restrictions, then if the province has those, then that will prevail over any municipal considerations in terms of what they can be allowed to be used for. So one of the things that we are suggesting to be included in the risk assessment is what type of uses can will be supported as a result of this option-based full-scale remediation then.
Okay, yeah, that's one of my questions. What would be the difference between
Yes.
the full-scale
correct, yeah.
remediation versus,
There's
I guess, the exclusion remediation? And because I know with it, the way it was sitting, they wouldn't even let, food trucks sit on there overnight because they were worried there might be some seeping up of
Okay.
fumes and stuff,
Okay.
so. Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering, what could it be used for if this was applied, and is it a clean bill for that parcel so that it could be sold? So I guess for me, I would need more information to go on it. Councillor Stenhouse had a question.
Well, this is directed to the CAO. I'm confused here. Is ESSO putting this lot up for sale? Like they want to clean it up and put it for sale, or are they offering it to the town?
Right now, this consultant, their specialty is remediation, quality improvement to land, something like that. It's in their title, apparently. So they didn't say, I assume they're gonna remediate it to sell it. Because they aren't gonna put another gas station on there. But I have not heard, I have not made contact to ESSO. Working through this SLR consulting firm. They're communicating with us.
I don't think anywhere in there are they talking about giving the land to the town.
No,
No.
Yeah, but this is what's confusing. We want to get our bylaws in place before this happens, correct? Is that what path we're going down?
Well, not necessarily. They are asking for an option. And for the province to allow them to pursue that option, they need the buy-in or support from the town.
Oh,
For the town to be able to support that, your bylaws have to allow that option.
okay.
The bylaws as is now do not allow that. So, yeah.
So is this a positive move that ESSO is gonna do something about that law?
well, there's certainly discussions underway. Other than that, I don't know anything more than my discussions with the consulting firm, and then they want to know. And then I conferred with Comiente, and so that we can come up with our possible options if we were going to allow this exemption.
I think the bottom line for me is that if it's gonna cost less to remediate, they may remediate it. And
Right.
that the reason.
Yeah.
And it might get remediated and then under this exclusion that we've never heard of before, that the province has made available. I don't know if it's new or if it's just something this company knows of, but just off the top of my head, I don't think we have anybody using the aquifer for domestic water anyways, right? I think we're pretty safe there and we could exclude that, so it's not really a big step. And if it can get that remediated, to me, we'd want to learn a little bit more about it, because what can that site then be used for?
This falls in with our strategic priority for economic development, so that's why we're pursuing this and pushing it along.
So I know we have an RFD in here, but I think
We need way more information.
we need a little bit more information before, but this is very interesting to find out about this and an option. So when we can find out what the lands can be used for, then we could decide if we want to put in the bylaws needed to allow them to pursue it. So maybe we can finally see something happening in that lot across the street. As long as it's good. Councilor Martins?
Well, I'm not certain if I should direct this to MMSA or CEO, but what prompted the province to bring up this exclusion? Was it recent? Where did
I don't know what prompted the province, but I think, like, I know I was asked, I think at a previous council meeting, what about the land, across from town hall? So then that, I'm not sure who the first contact was, but started that conversation, I ended up finding SLR Consulting. And then they, whatever they told me, I passed on Coniete to see what we could do or what we have to consider.
So I asked because Alberta municipalities as well as RMA are doing a lot of work with brownstone. That's one of our, so I don't know the extent out of that. And who is SLR? Are they sanctioned by AB News or RMA, or are they personally retained by us, the town?
They're retained by ESSO. Yeah. Where they they have many properties across Canada, so that they need to close off and remediate, so they use this consulting firm.
So ESSO's looking for ways to reduce their costs to remediate the land, and this is one possible option. But we need to know if anybody's using it. We need to put in the laws that are the bylaws that would allow them to go after this exemption. And then we have to make sure that the property can be used after that.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a standard of levels of toxins or whatever that are like what we're looking at from the province now? Have they reduced the levels of toxins that can be allowed in soil, or are we maintaining that?
Yes, good question. It's something we may have to look into. I made an initial contact with Alberta Environment, and I haven't been able to speak to the person there, so I'm hoping to do so in the next little while. Then I can gather more information, including Councillor Sasha's question about when this option was made available, and then I can gather maybe more information about that. 100%.
If you could get us information on what acceptable levels are and where we're sitting now, like what if they would measure that now, it would be awesome just to see where we're at.
Where it is now will probably come from their consultant,
Mhm.
and then the province will be able to tell us if your question is what levels are acceptable under this 5 versus full-scale remediation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know they monitor it. I've seen them out there over the years checking the thermometers for the contaminations. I know there's reports up there. I saw one 12 years ago, 15 years ago, that showed a lot of contamination, but if they're, like you said, if they're moving the goalpost, still want to tell people how to frame of this.
Okay, just in terms of procedure, I know we've got an RFD here. It's kind of odd because it is a delegation, and we often don't have RFDs with delegations. But I think from where we're at, do we want to, I guess, move on this and just make a motion to receive for information at this time, and then we'll get some more information, or actually we could say the council, this one, the recommended action, continue to pursue the development of the ESSO land and accept this report for information only.
Oh.
Are we all right with that motion? And doing it during during a scheduled delegation? Yeah? Okay, so all in favor of that motion? It's carried. And so that was number one. What was number two? What do you want to do with next?
Land use bylaw amendment, number 06/2025.
Okay.
Yeah, so there was a development permit application for the storage of sea cans on a property that is currently not zoned for that use. And so the application could not be approved without an amendment to the land use bylaw, and that was communicated to the applicant. And an application was submitted for an amendment to the land use bylaw to allow that. as mentioned earlier, the property is zoned public services, which as is now doesn't allow the storage of sea cans. It is not a residential zoning, it's not a commercial zoning. As is now, sea cans are allowed in commercial and industrial districts and temporarily in residential districts during the construction phase of the dwelling unit itself. There have been questions more recently and even applications for storage of sea cans in residences, but that's a conversation that probably council can have later on. But in this case, we looked at the bylaw, the district, the other uses that are there and felt that allowing this would not create any issues. It will be still used as accessory to the primary uses that are allowed in that district. And so the bylaw amending the land use bylaw has been prepared. And what this does is that it now adds sea counts to the discretionary uses within the urban services district, so which is a correct zone for that way. And then also strengthens the existing rules currently in the bylaw around sea cans. So, for example, making it very clear again that they are not allowed in residential districts. Like I said, because we've had previous inquiries and even applications for that which had to be denied because the bylaws do not allow that permanent use in residential district. So that has to be made clear. And then other rules that they cannot be used for advertising purposes. It cannot be used for storing combustible materials and a couple of other regulations that were clarified or strengthened. So the recommendation is that council provide first reading to this bylaw amendment and then a public hearing subsequently scheduled and advertisement done in accordance with the regulations of the Municipal Government Act. If and when the bylaw is given second and third reading, then the development permit application will be reviewed and if necessary approved in accordance.
Was there somebody in High Prairie that asked for this, or is this emanating from a discussion that Peace River had? It was in the newspaper a few weeks ago.
Okay. I'm not sure about the Peace River scenario, but this emanated specifically because a development permit application was submitted to store sea cans on the property in question. And it could not be approved because the zoning doesn't allow that. So to be able to approve it, we have to amend the bylaw to be able to, yeah.
All right, and thanks for that overview. And I know Councillor Wakel has a question or comment. I'm not sure.
Is this, knowing where this is at on there and remembering back year and a half ago, Northern Lakes College saying that they were going to put some sort of dormitories there. Are these going to be converted into like dormitories? Is that what the?
No. Yeah, so one of the things that you could see here is that on the proposed bylaw, it says that sea cans cannot be used as a dwelling unit of any type within the town. So that's very clear. They've indicated that it's going to be used to store material.
Okay,
The dormitories are separate.
that's okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, that's still under.
Councillor Stenhouse?
This is a new bylaw because we don't have a bylaw on sea cans.
There is a land use bylaw. So the land use bylaw deals with development in terms of what can be allowed where. And in that bylaw now assist, it doesn't allow sea cans in the zoning that this property is located. So for them to be able to store sea cans there, that land use bylaw has to be amended. And you can only amend the land use bylaw by preparing another bylaw, amending that bylaw. So this is what the intent of this proposal is. This bylaw is going to amend that land use bylaw to allow sea cans to be stored in the zone where the property is located.
So I don't know if this is a question for you or for the CAO. So there are CCANs in residential and commercial areas. So what do we do now?
Yes, so
Because we've never had a bylaw, so people just assume that they could bring in CCANs.
Councillor Stenhouse, there is a bylaw now. In the land use bylaw passes now. It doesn't allow people to store them in residences. So if there are any now, that means they dated the current bylaw. So when you prepare a bylaw to change things and prevent certain actions, you grandfather what is already there. So the ones that are currently in residences probably predated the current bylaw, so they've been grandfathered in. The bylaw now allows it in commercial and industrial, but not residential, and then not urban services district. So this proposal is now going to allow them in urban services district, which is where Northern East College is located under that zone. So it will now allow them in urban services district for storage of materials. It still doesn't allow them permanently in residential zones because council has determined that as now that they don't want to let it happen. There are conversations about allowing them in residential zones going on. And one of our member municipalities has now allowed that. So that might be a conversation that may come up again later on. But this specific one is not to allow them to be stored in residential areas. It's just to allow them to store it in Northern Lakes, which is zoned as urban services districts. Yes, if that helps.
I have a couple of questions. One of them is, what do other communities allow in urban services districts? Is this common and, in this designated type of area?
I would say that zoning designation is somewhat unique to the town. So typically you would have your residential districts, commercial, industrial. Then you have community district, which is for public uses, cemeteries, those sort of things. So this is mostly institutional. This district is somewhat unique to the town and largely for institutional use, including like Northern Lakes College, other type of uses are also allowed, but we did not deem it incompatible with that because, as I said, it's not a primary use that's going to be allowed. It will still be ancillary or accessory to a primary use. So it will be the same as because if they were to build a shed, that would be allowed because that's tertiary use that's already allowed in that district. So it's just a metallic structure that they're using to store stuff. So because sheds are already allowed, we feel that this is also consistent with that.
Yeah, I can understand that, and I understand, for me, and this is just my thinking, is that it's in a highly visible area, right, where they would like to put them, and, CCANs along that, and, it's right alongside a residential area. It's a residential area on, two of its sides, the other two are more commercial, but I would be more in favor of sheds or at least maybe seeing a fence around that would mask the view of the CCAN, something like that.
Yes.
Putting a 6-foot high fence or something, just so it doesn't look so
Visible.
CCAN. I don't know how else to put it, but yeah, they don't look as aesthetically pleasing in a prime area of town. That's
That's a nice one.
Thank you, Mayor Brian, if I can respond to that. So under the proposed regulations in this bylaw, 9.12.9 reads, Beacons must be well maintained and in good condition, or alternatively must be adequately buffered to the satisfaction of the development authority. The development authority may require that the beacon be given a fresh coat of paint as a condition of issuing a development permit. Before that, the other clause says that the exterior finish of a beacon located within a commercial, industrial, or urban services district must be consistent with or complementary to the finish of the principal building. The application that is being under consideration, they intend to actually install a fence around it to provide some screening, visual screening around it. So there is the option to even go beyond that if need be, as a means of buffering it for.
Councillor Wakel?
I think the best thing to do in here would be to do the first reading, schedule the public hearing, and then we can hear from everybody on this, right? There's only 6 of us here tonight. You know, one of us lives right, the 2 of us actually live right by there. But I think a public hearing on this is warranted. That to, you know, we can talk about this in circles all day long. I want to hear from people that are going to be living right there next to these things. And I want to hear from more from the next college as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shishin?
I think part of it was answered already there. So, but we're not just talking like one CCAN, we're talking multiple CCANs, right?
Right, yeah, you can-
Around that area, so it just compounds it, but I guess it does in a way, right? I mean, there's not just one sitting. I'm just looking at the property there, so it's not just one sitting behind the school there. So it's talking about multiple. So yeah, I guess Councilor Wakeland kind of mentioned it already. I think that's where it will be really important for you be able to get that information from everyone, your comments in that regard. So, no,
I think that if I may add, if they indicated there are existing solar panels there that they want to fence off and
Yeah.
put underneath.
right,
So,
okay,
yeah, if that helps, yeah.
okay.
But once the application has been received, the bylaw has to be prepared, the public hearing has to be conducted,
Yeah.
and then council on the consideration of the outcome of the public hearing can decide whether to give second and third reading to the bylaw, amend it, or defeat it. If it ends up being defeated because there is strong public opposition to that, and council feels that the best decision is to not proceed with that bylaw, then the development permit should refuse, then it will remain as is.
Right.
Yes, I think most of the contentions around that is storage in residential properties, yeah, generally speaking. In commercial, industrial, non-residential district, people, generally speaking, they don't care.
And to that volume too, it's a bigger impact, right?
Yes, so the bylaw as it, or the amendment, also state that one, they cannot be start. Also, there is a section that the maximum number of CCANs that may be placed on a commercial, industrial, or public services district shall be at the discretion of the development authority. So even if the bylaw passes, goes through, the development authority has the option to say maybe we're only allowing 1 or 2. Yeah, that is the,
Right.
if there is concerns about volume or what it is.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments on this?
I agree with Councillor Winkle that we move to reading. Because I do have other questions and stuff, but it's all stuff that needs to come out in a public discussion. So I think getting to that point is more important this evening than going round and round of our concerns or non-concerns.
So is that your motion?
I will read my motion. The council provide first reading to bylaw number 06-2025 and schedule a public hearing.
All right, before we vote, any other comments on this, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? It's carried. And you had a third topic.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Third one will be the telecommunications facility policy. So, again, thank you for your patience on this. The draft was presented to council in February, I believe, and we received minor feedback, specifically from Councillor James, which has been incorporated into this final draft. That was, you had asked for the possibility of extending the timelines for emergency use sort of installations to support emergency. So, the revision now removes the 3 months, restriction sort of. So long as it's removed, they are allowed to proceed without the need for a development permit. We got some feedback also from the Regional Office of Industry, Science and Economic Development Canada, which is the federal entity responsible for regulating and approving telecommunications facilities. So those have been incorporated into this final version as well. One of the substantive comment they provided is that as is right now, when a development permit is issued in accordance with the land use bylaw, it is valid for 2 years.
Yeah.
When they provide approval for a telecommunications facility, it's valid for 3 years. So we've aligned the language to align with their requirements. So notwithstanding anything in the land use bylaw, if it is given a development permit approval, that's for 3 years instead of the typical 2 years that other permits are conditioned upon. Otherwise, most of the other, in terms of design and lighting, there were things that they said, okay, that also falls under the jurisdiction of, for example, if it's close to an airport, Navigation Canada, they will determine what is appropriate, what is not appropriate, and what not. So, and then the one that they said, well, they cannot say is good or bad is that as is right now, not all districts support telecommunications facilities. So the requirement is that if a district doesn't support that and somebody, there's a proposal for that, the proponent has to pay for the cost of amending the bylaw to allow that. Because if the feds are going to allow it, then you have to amend your bylaw in compliance with that. But the cost of amending that should be borne by the proponent. We encountered that with an initial proposal that was done. We forget this whole thing. And the proponent felt that they should not be responsible for that because we didn't have a policy in place. We let them go through that. So what they said is that they review if and when the proponent feels that it's unreasonable for them to absorb the cost of the amendment, they will come back to them and then they will make a decision on that on a case by case basis. So they can't say it's right or wrong. So what we have in the version here is that, which is 5.6, it says that the cost of amending the land use bylaw to facilitate a proposed telecommunications facility development shall be borne by the developer. 5.7, notwithstanding policy 5.6 about council may direct administration to initiate the required amendments to the land use bylaw at the cost of the town. So if it comes back and they say, no, the proponent shouldn't be responsible, then automatically the town absorbs it. Or council within, before it gets there, decide that, okay, we will take on the cost. So other than that, the others were mostly mine.
Okay, questions on this, citing policy? Councilor Martins?
So, Colby, I'm not sure that MSA was engaged, but this came to us like 2022, very early on.
Right.
And at that time, it was either Rogers or TELUS or somebody that.
Correct.
So what has happened with that? I mean, it's been a couple of years now.
I haven't followed up, but they obtained approval, I believe it was last year or 2020. Yeah, I think it was early 2024 or late 2023. So I don't know where they are right now, but they got approval from the town, and also we call a letter of concurrence, which is that the town supports it. If in the absence of this, the federal government has guidelines that they still have to adhere. If you want to go beyond that, then you have to have your policy in place. So I'm not sure where that is at now, but they've already obtained municipal approval. So.
Okay. So can anyone here update me as to what that approval gave them the rights to do or where? Because I remember we were gonna have a public hearing, this was years ago, but we never did, and it's never come back. So they're saying that there was municipal approval. What have we approved them to do?
I can't answer that.
Yeah, well, it was to install a tower in town for just to enhance their services. So that was what the application was for.
Do you know where, Colin?
I have to go back and look at that. I can provide you that information. David, if that's okay, yeah. Like I said, they still were required to do notification, so we had to provide them, for example, all the addresses of properties within a certain radius of that. And before we will recommend approval, we needed evidence that they have sent the notification. They had to do a newspaper advertisement or public notification. They provided that to us as well as evidence of complying with that. So because we didn't have this policy in place, we had to assess them based on the default guidelines that the federal government has in place. And to the best of our assessment, they comply with all of that.
So again, the federal regulations kind of allow
Takes
more or
precedence.
less to go ahead as long as they meet these things, because we didn't have a policy in place. And do they have a tower up somewhere doing that?
That's why I think,
Yeah,
I don't know if we're aware.
But what I don't want to see, like on the picture of the front of this policy, those great big stacks with, multiple things on them looks god awful. And we don't want that in the middle of town, right? And anything.
Yes, so we have preferred areas in this policy. So if that's, one of the things that we do is that before they do anything, they have to do preliminary consultations with the town. The town will guide them on the basis of this policy. So it's already presented before then. These are the areas we will support, these are the areas we discourage.
Yeah.
So all of those things are outlined in the policy. So if you have one in place, then they try to work with that. Unless they find something totally unreasonable, then they may go back or ask for exemption from the federal government. So.
Yeah, and I saw in here that you were asking them to share, if somebody else wanted to get in on the
Yes.
same time,
Yeah.
which is good.
Yeah. It reduces the number of.
Yeah, and I guess part of me, I didn't really see in here is the aesthetics of it.
I think that's under design standards.
Yeah,
I see screening, and that might be what we're design, color, and massing, so.
Yes.
But anyway, yeah, so we've got, with this, it allows us to have a little bit more control in just.
That's correct.
That's all I want to hear. We've got more than we had before. Councilor Martins.
So I love this recommendation for going forward, but the one that's already been approved, what if it is an eyesore, like the ones depicted here in this policy? Because it's already been approved, do we know, what the were there like aesthetic regulations, guidelines, anything like that? Because this does not apply to it, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So hopefully it's a good one. And there will be unfortunately one finally because at that time, because this policy was not in place, there are limits to what you could ask for. But hopefully they will do a good job. I mean, I guess they are aware that that's the common complaint. So I think they try to, new designs are more aesthetically pleasing, and then they try to fence around it and all of that. Yeah, so it's a common complaint that they are aware of that people, especially if it's in the high visibility area of town, that aesthetics is the one concern that municipalities have. So
All right, anything else? We can. No? Anybody want to make a motion on this one?
Alright.
Well, I was just, you're usually quick on that, but.
Well, I'm gonna made a couple already. Alright, move council adopt policy number 01-2025. And direct administration to post it to the town's website.
Okay, any discussion on that before we vote? All in favor? It is carried. Thank you very much for
thank
coming
you.
in.
I think I have
Oh,
one final.
and we're not on.
Finance council wants to postpone that, which is fine with me.
Oh, wait, did we talk about the vacant land
Yes,
by the,
because that's
we can do that.
at your next meeting.
Let's do that
Yes,
next meeting.
it's another-
We have
that
some other
period
delegations.
Quite extended, yeah, that's going to be longer
Yeah,
than.
that's fine.
Yeah. That would be, yeah. let's-
So we're looking at it. It's, we'll have something for you in June.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
very
Thanks
much
for coming in.
Right, and I know we have a few public delegations that have been waiting patiently. I appreciate that, and you get to learn all kinds of new things here today. So hopefully some of it was interesting. I will open the floor for whichever public delegation would like to come up first. I know we've got 3 or 4 up, so anyone wants to come up, I'm fine with. Thanks, Menti. And Carol and Trish, you guys know the sort of the routine is to introduce yourself, hit the button to talk, and then we'll let you go. You got 5 minutes. Or up to 5 minutes.
All right, I'm Trish, Vice Chair, of beautification. And I'm Carol Hanlon. I'm here representing the Pipe Dairy Beautification Committee. So I'm just gonna read what I wrote here as always. In the spirit of reconciliation, as we are surrounded by both First Nation and Métis settlements, and of many Indigenous citizens residing in the community who look forward to come out and support the town light up every year. The beautification committee had a discussion on the May 21st meeting and discussed the idea of incorporating a dream catcher lit up with Christmas lights at the town light up this year. We understand that tourist booth will be removed and feel that this would be a perfect location for such a display as there's already a cement pad and electricity right there. This year, we'd be looking at a temporary dream catcher. They're making it a more permanent structure in the future, which will have Christmas lights for the town light up, so that we can also set it to run orange lights on September 30th, which is National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, better known as Orange Shirt Day. And we could do them in red on both MMIWG days in May and October. We feel this would be a good recognition to our Indigenous community who always comes out and supports the town light up and other events. We are asking Mayor and Council to consider the approval of the current pad under the tourist booth to be used for this display so we can start securing funds to erect a permanent structure. Once approved, we'll be seeking donations and applying for funding to put a permanent structure in there. I brought some pictures of what we're kind of looking at.
Copies.
So that's kind of the idea we're looking at. This year, one of our committee members, Jennifer Anderson, is already working on how she could do it with PVC. So this one would just be a temporary one if we're allowed to put that one up. And then, like I said, we'd be looking for securing funding after, so we can put a more permanent one.
All right, a very, very interesting idea. That's, I thought maybe when you were coming, you were gonna talk about your request for doing the town cleanup later on, but then but this is good. Yeah. So what, I mean, we usually don't give an answer right away. It'll come back with an RFD at another date, but just so that you know that, but I'll throw it open to see if anybody has any questions about this at this point in time.
I guess just so we can keep in the front of our thinking, what are your timelines? Like, how soon do you need to get back from us?
I'm not really sure. Sometime under two, so that we can make sure that we have the temporary one ready to go for November.
Can you send me what you just read out? Can you
Sure.
email it to me?
Yep.
Are you done, Councillor Dunn?
Yeah.
Yep, Councillor Wakefield.
He's always done. I love the idea. I'm also as white as the pure driven snow. The elders on the First Nations and the Métis settlements, are they cool with a dream catcher being used in such a manner?
To be honest, we didn't consult them. This was an idea we discussed at our meeting.
But I would want to make sure that they're good with the idea, because I know it's a part of the culture and spiritual and all that kind of stuff. So, but again, like I said, also as white as the pure driven snow, and I am very ignorant of a lot of things when it comes to the native culture. So, we'll bring this back to our next meeting, I guess, and if you guys could reach out to them in some manner and find out how they feel about it, and let us know, that'd be awesome.
You can do that.
Anybody else? Questions at this time? All right, well, thank you very much. Very interesting idea. Creative minds thinking.
Thank you.
I know we have a couple, we've got Larkin and Barry and so.
You're my next.
Yes, I'm fine with whoever wants to come up next. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Name's Dennis Kerr. I'm
I'll get you to turn your mic on, just hit the button and that'll make everybody hear better.
my name's Dennis Kerr. I'm with the FOSS RCMP. I'm not here with the RCMP though. I'm here with the Friendship Center. I'm actually the vice president of the Friendship Center. And I happen to be just ending my shift, so I just came straight here. So what we're requesting from town council is the High Prairie Native Friendship Center would like to host a street event on June 20th, 2025 from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. in recognition of Indigenous Peoples Day. We would like to have the street closed between 49th Street and 50th Street from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. to have time to set up and take down our event. We understand that businesses will be open during that portion of what time, which may affect their customers accessing parking in front of their businesses. We have talked to the businesses and secured letters of support from each of the businesses. We're asking for permission from the town to be able to close the street off for our event. Having said that, we didn't get letters from everybody back yet. We're still waiting for Sheila's hair salon and the regional council office. They haven't gotten back to us yet. But I have some letters that they signed, all the other owners, their business owners, so it's basically what we're asking for today.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I know we've approved that in the past, so I don't think that'll be a problem. But again, I just want to sort of reemphasize that, you know, the public delegation time is you can present ideas and stuff, but we usually don't make a decision until we get a chance for our CEO to look into it and get those letters of support, and that we can include them in, and maybe if we can get a written request from you, that can come to our next council meeting and we can push it through. That would be fantastic.
Okay, there's a council meeting before the 20th of June.
Okay, June 10th.
June 10th.
So we
Sounds good.
get it to me by the end of this week.
Sure.
Yeah.
We could do that. Thank you.
And again, I don't see any problems just because we have approved it before. The one thing, just, I know there's a requirement for some insurance on events now that we may not have had last year. And you can chat with our CEO. There is you work through the town's insurer, and just to make sure that the event is covered in case there's an accident.
Okay.
But that's the only sort of thing that's different. I don't know if we had it at this time last year or if it was.
We just saw it.
We did not.
I don't think so.
Oh, it's been around a year more, but, so it's right around that line, but I can't remember what the cost is, but our CEO can get you that information. It's a relatively small fee for insurance, but.
All right. I think that's all I have to.
Sure. I'll just see if anybody else has questions or comments for you on this one.
Just sad that it's on the first day of the North Country Fair.
Actually, I just noticed that. I have to run that stuff too, so.
We'll keep you busy.
Yeah, the weekend I'll be busy.
All right.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And great idea. I like him in the past. It's been good.
Thank you very much.
Okay, have you?
Right, the dates for request. Good day, everybody. I'm here today, different. I'm confused. I want to know if we have lots of money with Donald High Ferry in the budget to keep chasing COs out of town. I think this has to stop. I received this email complaining about our new CO and sent to Minister MacGyver. Well, for everybody to know, Mr. MacGyver, he resigned, and we have my good friend Dan William as the Minister of Municipal Affairs now. So the way I see it, this is nonsense, have to stop. So there is a letter in here, in the email, and this email is addressed to the minister, addressed to the councillors, and to the auditor of Southeast News, Chris Craig. So if this person, she could send an email like this, and she's allowed to do it by herself without the permission of the councillors and the mayor, why can't our CEO, to protect our town, and tell the truth about the Bill 50? I spoke to the minister about Bill 50. He didn't mean I read. And I believe your worship, he told me that he did talk to you. And he explained to you the Bill 50 wasn't meant for high grade. I am willing to do a debate with this individual counselor to prove everything was written in the stage report was a fact. Enough giving outside games and lies. Have to stop. The folks outside, the one helping this individual person, they have to stop because it's going to affect on them. It's going to affect on their business. Another thing, one of those contacting one of the chiefs and say, we could do better training hockey. Don't send your kids to the college and go on. We're trying our best to do business for our community. That college is going to bring a whole bunch of business for High Prairie. And if they don't respect that, well, there is something that's not right in here. The gentleman, as the CEO, if he wrote this letter to protect our community, to protect the 2,800 people resident in High Prairie, the resident that they vote for you guys as a councillors, the resident is down, they need to know the truth. The resident in High Prairie, they need to know what's exactly going on in here. The mayor of this town is the leader. The mayor has the right to say how things have to go. This is not really that major crime as the email said. It's a crime. Every time we get the CO, run out. And the town has to pay the price. We have a new CO. I believe I checked, he bought a house. I checked, he did a renovation in the house. The man is willing to stay in High Prairie for 5 to 6 years, 7 years. What's wrong with that?
So what is the point?
If you really stay in the house, please let me finish. I have the right. I'm not shouting or saying anything bad about anybody.
No, but.
I'm saying facts in here, right here, Judy. Judy, this is coming up to you. Judy, you've been going to some businesses and you are telling everything about the town of High Prairie. And I was told by the staff of that business, I'm not going to say who's the staff. But I want to tell you, Judy, the last time you've been in this chair for 40 years, and 40 years, that's 8 years, Judy. You asked the fire chief the other day how he gets his funding. He gets his funding from the insurance. When they go on a highway, when there's fire in houses, that's how that. Did you check how we fixed and we built that the fire hall? Check into it. From the money, $255,000, that's 200 in 2011 and 12. From the money we got from the highway and the insurance. That's how you get the funding. Judy, when you sit in that chair, when you left for 4 years, 4 months or 5 months on the citizen expense, and you went to do some work, if I was the mayor, I would have let you go. I would have told you to have to write down. Because that, Judy, I'm saying a fact in here, and that's what it is in here.
Why is it?
You guys have to stop destroying our town. Stop
By
destroying our town.
asking.
What they did to the Finishing Center.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah, this needs.
I want to finish, Mr. Mayor. I'm telling the truth in here.
It's just hold on, okay? Okay. Barry, your time is basically up. I'll let you just,
One more thing, Mr. Mayor, if she's talking about facts and criminal and all that, there's the group from the Friendship Center. When they went to take over and get everybody in the call from the Friendship Center, and we lost the funding at the Friendship Center because of that council. I'm telling you, Mr. Mayor, this is getting ridiculous and this have to stop. Enough is enough. This is our town. I've been in this town since 1973. I have the right to speak on behalf of this town. I'm a businessman in this community. I'm a taxpayer in this community. Those folks, they have to stop destroying our community. They want to destroy it, they better go somewhere else. They are doing all kind of, you know,
I'm not sure why.
what do you call it, section, this, section, that. Let them make a section how to get out of High Prairie, because this is getting too much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I have to say.
thank you.
Have to stop.
All right, I know Larkin's been waiting patiently to. I'm like,
Hello, I'm Larkin Stokes. From High Prairie, first year teaching at EW Pratt. Just looking at the projects, I started EW Pratt High School. I was talking to some kids. Right now, the school's volleyball is very popular. Club volleyball started in town about 3 years ago. I'd say volleyball is the most popular sport. Kids play school season, then they play club. Unfortunately, it's summers right now. The schools, we're not allowed in the gyms, so there's no place for them to play in the summer. So started a proposal, talking to a few kids, if someone played beach in the summer. Unfortunately, last year, there was nowhere for them to play locally. The closest courts, there was mini one in Winagami, and Shaw's Point slowly starting to make one too, but there was none locally. So just starting to work with the project, on building beach volleyball courts, for the school. I was thinking it could also be a good project for the community, so I started talking to the CM. There's lots going on with the rec lately, and I've heard lots of positives, and I thought this could add to it. EW Pratt's located right beside the pool. There's a nice area just north of the pool, close to EW Pratt, close to the pool. There's been beach volleyball courts in town before. There used to be one by Prairie River, kind of got glass, it wasn't fenced. There was dogs using it, riffraff. It eventually got replaced, so we're not gonna build beach volleyball court unless it's fenced and locked. The issue is if it's locked, yes, I would keep the school, but for the community to use it, that becomes a bit of an issue. By building it right north of the pool, can be locked. If let's say a community member wants to use it, they just go to the pool, we can have some kind of process there, and then it gets unlocked. That's where I want to build it north of the pool. I think it'd be good for our community. It's a good we've had lots of things happen in our town lately with rec in the last, let's say, year. And this will just add to it, and it'll be good for adults, youth, students, all. Nice thing with beach volleyball courts is there's, I'd say, little to zero maintenance cost once they're built. If the cost to build it is that, like, make sure there's cloth on the bottom. There's really no maintenance cost.
How many courts?
Two courts, so a court's 8 by 16. I teach, but also been work at the aquatic center for 10 years. I know an issue that could come up, that north wall has had issues in the past. So just to make sense, me and my brother went and pegged it out and did some pegging theory, just to make sure it's over 22 feet away from the pool. Which if there is future issues, I think that is enough space to help fix it. Couple issues I see. So EW Pratt would fund the courts, we'd secure funding for it. What would be asking the town is for the land, and then the process, I guess, of if the community wants to use it. We'd fund it, the community, open the community, but yeah, it'd be locked. This talk, and I already have secured some funding already. Haven't been able to get a grant yet, but there's a lot of interest locally. And there's been lots of interest in kind of, I was hoping when I first came, I was gonna see if the town would do like the work of digging stuff. The dirt, I realized the town's quite busy with lots of projects going on this summer. I've had some companies where we could take care of the work. If the town can help with something, it's great, but if not, we'll make sure that work's done for it to get built. As long as I can secure the funding partway there, but I want to make sure I got the land before I get all the way there.
Great idea.
One thing I should add, since this has happened, so literally 2 days ago, I saw my one of my buddies teach at St. Andrews. They just put their net out, which hasn't been out in years. So they just put it out. I would say, like he said, it's not an ideal court. It hasn't been out in years, and it probably won't be up in the summer, which is the time the kids don't have access to gyms and want to be playing volleyball.
Okay, we're ready for questions. I'll throw it open. Councillor Wakel.
Love the idea. You've been talking to CM, so This isn't gonna get in the way of where the splash park is going.
Yeah, so the splash park is, so it would be west of, let's see, west of the pool staff parking lot. It's more on the Prairie River side,
Okay,
where this will be built between the pool and Pratt.
okay, and the town owns that property? That's not the school that owns that?
So I wouldn't fully know, but the fence runs, it's on the pool side of the fence. I got a picture here.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Maybe the school division property.
I would, how it's fenced, I guess I should look into that, but how it's fenced, I just automatically assumed it was pool because it's on the pool side of the fence.
Yeah, that property came from the school in the first place, right? So. I love the idea. I'm not saying no,
Yeah.
but like, as far as securing the property, it might not be us.
Was told that we belong to, because we continue the maintenance of it for long term.
Probably.
We're not together line, so it's your town. Next.
Well, again, it's a great idea. It's something to look at and like, we don't make decisions like
Yeah.
tonight on something that comes in, but if we get this information, we'll put it forth
Yeah.
to our agenda for the next agenda, and then we'll have time to look into it, who owns it, and make some decisions on next meeting's June 10th. But before you go, I just wanted to see if there's any other questions people may have so that we can be ready for next meeting. Councilor Martins.
So Martin, thanks for coming in. I think it's fantastic. What are you envisioning? Are there tournaments? Is this open? It's like, like Shins hockey, like is it summer only?
So, yeah, so it'll be used, so the schools will all have a key. So the school use will be incorporated in the schools, Gazette programs. But also then. And that's why I want to build there, like, if we built it, to get the community access by building it. It's gonna be locked, like we're not building it unless it's fenced and locked, and by doing that, then. Community can use it, but we have to figure out some kind of process, but the pool staff's already there. They have a key at the front desk, unlock it, and then maybe they have to sign some kind of liability thing, and then they can use it. I host lots of tournaments at EW Pratt. That was my first year there, and it's just gonna keep going up, because we like doing it. And yeah, we'll be hosting lots of beach volleyball tournaments, which will be good for our town as well. And hopefully I can't speak on it, but hopefully they become like a beach volleyball association, like with other things, so then for youth competitive play throughout the summer, because it isn't technically a summer sport, but I could see that getting formed.
Does Slave Lake or Peace River have that kind of thing?
Yeah, Peace River just built new courts behind their school. I would have to speak to some of the kids that played last year, from I know they're playing mostly in Edmonton and stuff, but.
Have you talked to the organizer up there for more detail of what, costs and everything else that they run into?
Yes, yeah, so my budget, I've kind of talking, I do some more research with what our budget, I've cut some costs down, lots of it through just the interest in kind. Like, for example, the eliminating the trucking of the sand is donated, that eliminates a huge cost. So at first had incorporated gravel, talking with lots of local companies that want to do that kind of dirt work and stuff. They said just with the water level, we wouldn't need gravel there, which eliminated a big cost. My budget, like, it can get built with 17,000. And the sand would be about 8 to 9 of that. The fence is about 5, and then the cloth and the 6x6 around it is another 3. Ideally, if we got perfect volleyball standards, that's another 10,000. I'd say that's an extra. We can build it for now without that, but if I can get that, it'd be ideal.
Yeah, very interesting. Anybody else? Oh, great idea. Thanks for bringing it forward. And if you could share some of that information with CM or our CAO, and we'll.
Yeah, I didn't bring my proper paperwork. This is kind of what I wrote for tonight,
Do
but
you need this back or?
no, you can keep that and I'll give you, if you want, I can give you proper.
Yeah.
Actual paper. I don't got it here today.
Yeah, just give me as much info. You email me, cao@highprairie.ca. Get any information comes to mind, send to me as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. And then hopefully by June 10th?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
Thank you. Right, and any other public delegations? No, okay, we're done with that. It's been an hour and 45 minutes. How are people doing at this point? We're ready for a break? Yeah, okay, let's take 5-10 minute break and then we'll get back at it.
Yes.